In January of this year, the FDA, which is the Food and Drug Administration, and the EMA, which stands for European Medicines Agency, jointly released 10 guiding principles for AI use across the entire medicine's life cycle. The first time America's and Europe's drug regulators agreed on a shared framework for this. It's actually a genuinely significant moment, and it still leaves the hardest question unanswered. When an AI system contributes to a manufacturing or quality decision that goes wrong, unfortunately, who's actually liable? Now, that question is at the center of Pharma's AI moment right now, an industry where India alone supplies roughly 47% of all US generic prescriptions. Mr. Rakesh Bhardwaj is Global CIO at Lupin, one of India's largest pharmaceutical companies, and has spent 3 decades across technology leadership roles, including Ola, Cognizant, and GE. He joins me exclusively on Front Page today to discuss this extremely impactful development and, of course, what does the road ahead truly say. Welcome to Front Page, sir. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me. It's wonderful, Sudhi, to have this conversation with you and take it forward, Sudhi.
I'm so glad to have you join us today on Front Page with your wonderfully rich experience. Actually, I would like to start at the point which would probably set context for all of us. As I had mentioned, AI in pharma is a very different kind of stake. Now, a software bug in most industries costs money, sir. In pharmaceutical manufacturing, an error can affect a patient's safety. So how does that difference in stakes actually change the pace at which an entire industry can very responsibly adopt AI?
Very good question. And my personal view is AI is first an assistant.
Right.
I call it the first A of AI is assistant. Then comes augmentation.
Fair.
And then finally, the agentic behavior, right?
Right.
Now, in regulated industries and also non-regulated industries, human in the loop is the most important aspect.
Sure.
If it's assisting you, it's enabling you. If it's augmenting you, it is making you little intelligent and giving you certain efficiencies. And if it's agentifying something, which means you are empowering the AI agent to take decisions on your behalf.
Yeah.
Which in my case, my view is that era is still very far away, because first we need to get comfortable as humans in this equation of human and machine intelligence, the HMI, which is commonly referred as. So I think that will constantly and consistently stay in the equation. And over my 3 decades of different technology transitions, evolutions, whatever you want to call it, Sudhi, I think human has always been in the loop.
Sure.
And once the technology is industrialized, which means adopted at a large mass scale, right, then you will have most of the so-called use cases and samples of different sorts across industries, verified, validated, not once, not twice. It's like saying, been there, done that, before humans get absolutely comfortable. So
Agreed.
I think AI is more today a play of decision advantage for a human than, replacing a human.
Fair point. So essentially, the way I could understand it, and you broke it down for us wonderfully well, because I agree with you. There is this constant tug of war which has been going on as far as, everyone. A lot of people say it's not the AI issue, it's actually the human issue. And then there is the converse side to that entire discussion. But I personally feel, Rakesh sir, as you just basically mentioned, I think the human should forever remain liable. Something as critical as pharmaceuticals, or for that matter, even non-regulated industries. And it was honestly a breath of fresh air, where I remember Eli Lilly was one of the first companies which was allowed by the FDA to reduce the timelines or the time cycles as far as cancer discovery drugs was concerned, which I thought was wonderful for it to happen. What are your thoughts on that? And then, of course, I'd like to go deeper into it, because as a pharmaceutical company, you have to look at it from a very different point of view. Okay, wait, you've been given the power, now how do you handle it?
See, at the end of the day, in pharmaceutical, anything and everything across the value chain is data,
Right.
right? Even to discover, you need data, right? And then comes after all the necessary approvals, you go through manufacturing with all kinds of quality checks everywhere, right? And finally, the dispatch, and the sales cycle kicks in that process. So, in my mind, you said it right. I think AI, like I said, is giving you that advantage and it relies heavily on data. Organizations which are focusing on getting their data in place and in shape, which to me is the quality aspect of that data,
True.
is so important because what is AI doing? It is doing inferencing at the top
Yes.
based on certain patterns,
Correct.
right? And it is doing at a lightning speed, which maybe 15, 20 years was happening inside the laboratories. Now it is available at a keystroke, like a prompt,
Sure.
right? Which we have done all our life on Google search bars, trying to find restaurants and maps around,
Correct.
right? So it's pretty much the similar kind of a thinking that it has made it so consumable for a common man like you, me, and many others
Right.
that people can work on it. So, in my mind, focusing on the data, getting the data quality, getting the data availability, because in a manufacturing setups, there is data everywhere.
Yes.
Question is it digital? Is it consumable? And can that be used in a consistent way to make inferences? Humans who are doing it, they will continue to do it. Here you've got, I call it another, companion or a specialist called AI who can help you to process that faster. And the decision making eventually will not move away from humans. These kind of tools can only help you guide or help you narrow down your choices with the loads of data which goes as an input. But humans will have to consistently make those decisions.
No, and I fully agree with you, Rakesh sir, to be honest. And I think, but again, I'd just like to very quickly ask you, do you feel that the industry at some level or the other has come to that realization that, wait a minute, this is not a magic wand. This is just essentially a tool that is only going to help me accelerate my overall work, etc. But whatever I'm putting into it, I am responsible and liable for doing it, because a lot of people tend to kind of, shy away from that entire understanding of saying that, wait a minute, AI is this wonderful Ramban of sorts. I'll just go ahead and implement it and everything will happen wonderfully well. I personally feel a lot of people don't even realize that we don't need AI in lots of workflows.
Absolutely.
Let it be
No,
manual. It works.
you're spot on. Let's not do sophistication for the heck of sophistication. That's
Yes.
exactly what you just said, right?
Right.
And having worked in many industries before I came into Lupin, the way I look at AI, since we have been on this journey for last 2 years since I joined, sure there was a hype, like any other hype, a kid in a candy store, right? You want to try
Right.
test every kind of a story. But I have two points of view which has developed over a period of time, and that's all based on the experience and the projects we have done.
Sure.
Number one, I think AI has given that ray of hope that it in a regulated industry you can do digital stuff more and more. Because please understand, pharmaceutical in is quality compliance first
Oh,
kind of
yes.
a approach,
Yeah.
right? And in that, leveraging technology at its best and at its peak, I think AI has given that advantage that people can think of. And that's what I am seeing in my 2 years of the kind of projects we have done in manufacturing, quality, sales, where clearly this is visible. The second, there has also been a realization that this is as good as the data lying under it.
Right.
And we have to be more digital. We have to make sure that the way data talks between different pieces of the process has commonality, and also there is a standard of quality. Because below that, you will get all kind of drifts, outcomes, or
Sure.
hallucination, like we talk about it, right? Because your data is not consistently giving you that as a standard.
Hmm.
So that is my personal view. And I think when I talk to my peers in the industry or outside, everybody is looking at this to be helping the teams or the organizational aspects to get more smarter, efficient,
Hmm.
both as an individual and as an operations. I have a new view which of late has been developing as a
Hmm.
corporate professional. If you look at our typical day,
Right.
it's a bundle of many things,
Sure.
right? From the meetings, starting at say 9 a.m. and then 10 a.m. And then you go into a strategy discussion, from a review meeting to a financial discussion, different kind of meetings.
Sure.
And there is a pattern
Hmm.
in our way we all run on a quarter or a half yearly basis, right? Kind of stuff. I look at this. I have built my own agent, which I have it, which keeps running on the side in the night.
Hmm.
And in the morning I get a daily digest, which I need to focus on
Hmm.
beautifully. I've started seeing this as it is helping me unbundle certain things
Fair.
and manage it for me or guide me for it,
Fair.
right? Which otherwise you will be reading through it, inferring through it. So, based on all the context which
Hmm.
exists
Hmm.
around me, not just limited to the role I perform, but as an organization,
Hmm.
it helps me to give me a what I call a meaningful response. And
Hmm.
then it's on to me to act.
Fair
That's
point.
the human aspect, right? It helps me to act on it, and that's beautiful. Because certain places you need, like simple things I have done, right? What's the priorities of this week? I put my agent to say, tell
Hmm.
me what are the five
Hmm.
things I should focus. I can't drop the ball. What I need to think next month, because there are long-term meetings also as executives and the leadership you
Sure.
have, right? So all that kind of stuff. That's why call it this beautiful assistant or an augmentator at this point in time,
Hmm.
because it's helping you to unbundle, manage few things, give you that capacity back so that you can do bigger and better things. That's the way I
Wonderful.
look at it, Sudhi.
Fair point, and it's actually quite heartening to hear from you, sir, that the overall ecosystem, your peers, as you mentioned, everyone seems to be quite mindful of this now, and everyone is
Absolutely.
realizing this, which is genuinely, I feel, progress in a big way.
Absolutely.
And the fact
Absolutely.
that moving forward, I think that is the kind of maturity one looks at. Also, just very quickly, I wanted to ask you this in terms of your assistant, as far as you just mentioned. So for this week, was the highlight this conversation? Just checking. I couldn't let it go. But anyway, very quickly, before I get into the regulation aspects of things in terms of what I'd
Yeah.
mentioned earlier, as far as the FDA and EMA is concerned, but very quickly before that, uh, it's nice that the very senior management like yourself is realizing it and using it correctly, which I believe will then percolate wonderfully well down the
Absolutely.
organization. Makes sense. What is your reply to, let's say, an investor? What is your reply to people who are, every quarter, etc., asking questions? Because I'm pretty sure that's also another thing which has been happening quite regularly, Rakesh sir, where they say, "Arey, उसने AI implement कर लिया, आपने क्यों नहीं किया?" Things like that.
No, so I think, see, every organization has its own journey.
Hmm.
Uh, and journey is not limited just to technology or AI.
Hmm.
It's even the operating models evolve, business models evolve, right? So every company follows a path. And for last 2 years, like I said, because I still remember October 2022,
Hmm.
sorry, 24, I should say. That's
Hmm.
when ChatGPT went
Yes.
ballistic.
Right.
Overall, 300 million odd people registered in about 15 days, right?
Hmm.
That was the arrival of what I call AI in a manner a consumer or a common citizen could access it, right?
Correct.
So we are on that journey. We share our stories. We talk about it in our recent integrated report. Also, we have called about it, the kind of projects we have been experimenting
Hmm.
initially. Any new tech or any new stuff you do, you start small. I always call it's a controlled experiment
Fair.
because you want the likelihood of success and the learnings to be side by side so that you know that when you scale, what are the things to consider,
Hmm.
right? And any such solution, again, taking it back from all my 3 decades of experience, you will have to make those strides. And once you prove it, then it's only scale up provided there is a value unlock, because business outcomes is what we live for as corporates,
Sure.
for our investors, for that matter, effective experiences for our employees worldwide, and that's what we keep focusing on. So, and we have been very transparent in sharing that what
Wonderful.
experiments we are doing, which have been successful, which we ourselves decided not to pursue anymore because we could clearly see, good as an experiment, but won't show us value and scale. And these are the kind of stuff, unless you try it, you won't get it,
I
right?
agree.
So there's nothing called failures in my mind. It's all about turning those learnings into some kind of positivity so that you drive it more aggressively as an organizational culture and set the right climate at the top so that people are ready to take those kind of what I call chances when choices are given to them. That's the way I look at it, Sudhi, very simply.
Makes sense, sir. I guess my little one-line takeaway from that is transparency drives trust. That's the way I understand it, and that's
Absolutely.
exactly what you're talking about.
And,
Then, of course,
and it's leaders have to do the walk the talk.
absolutely.
That's the other one I'll add, because that's another thing which I've been very happy with, that our executive team and leadership has been very supportive in driving, making themselves available, guiding the teams. Because, when you're in a laboratory, you're working on every possible option, right?
Sure.
And that's the way it is.
Makes sense. Coming back to the regulatory principles which have been given, sir. The 10 guidelines. This is, I believe, the first time that it's happened that both of them have kind of come together, the FDA and the EMA, and have put this across. So the point I'd like to ask you on this is this genuinely enough in terms of regulatory clarity for the industry to move forward with confidence, or do you feel this is a good first step that still leaves, let's say, a lot of things unresolved?
Very good question. I will not generalize it because any guideline, a few years ago when related to data privacy, we had GDPR coming in. Now in India, we have DPDP law coming in, right? All these are meant for a purpose of what I call clean practices, right?
Fair.
And making sure that you have defect-free outcomes when you are delivering that to your end customers or consumers, right? Whatever services they are or whatever products they are. So I think what has come with AI, the entire responsible AI ethics guidelines, you mentioned about US, Europe guidelines, there are other countries too. I think they are very complementary.
Okay.
Firstly, I would say, and it's a good list. Even when we started a project, just giving an example, we used to do what I call risk analysis.
Sure.
Right? Yes, it may not be that evolved when we started, but as we started learning through the project, started looking at the data and all that, we started looking at and saying, hey, you know what? We need to have these kind of checks and balances, maybe upstream than what we found downstream.
Fair.
So clearly there are use cases where I would say it's more of a prohibitive approach that, hey, no, kind of stuff. There are risk-based, high, medium, low, right? And that's what these guidelines are all talking about. So as part of our responsible AI policy, which we have created, also we have just rolled that out as part of the integrated report. And we have clearly said what is allowed, what is disallowed, right? And these translate to technical guardrails.
Okay.
Because one aspect is human behavior, that you need to educate and constantly make them aware of what is doable, what is not allowed, right? In the office and outside the office. The second is how do we technically bring them as controls when we build these kind of agents in AI world. So we have started incorporating that, and we do a thorough risk analysis ourselves as we start devising that, hey, you know what, this is a use case, makes sense, we should pursue it, build it. So as part of that, we have a risk framework which we have developed internally, and we use that. And that is under constant evolution, definitely taking inputs from regulations out there in the market.
Sure.
Also talking to the partners who are practicing it themselves, because it's an evolving field. And you said it absolutely right. That is a first version out there, and it will evolve. Because nobody wants to do the wrong thing.
True.
Let's be honest and straight about it.
Yeah.
But things do go wrong sometimes.
Yep.
So the question is, how do you bring those checks and balances up front and be transparent about it, right? And you do enough testing, not under one set of data sets, but different kind of data sets so that you have diversity and sometimes incompleteness in your solutions so that you can apply for it.
Fair
And that's what
enough.
we are doing it inside.
Fair enough. So then, Rakesh sir, this comes to my
Yeah.
mind. Generally speaking, as an OEM, for example, Lupin is an OEM. Now there is a long supply chain. There are vendors, there are sub vendors, etc., etc., etc. Now,
Mhm.
I'd want to understand from you, because this logically leads me to that question. As you just mentioned, there's a risk analysis, there are guidelines, there are technical facets, which are all being encompassed as far as that entire understanding goes, which then presumably I understand as if this would be going down the road to all the vendors who are, let's say, supplying to Lupin, logically. Now,
Yes.
with the new kind of secret sauce of AI coming into the picture, as you mentioned very rightly, and I agree with you, nobody wants to do it consciously, making a mistake, for example. But how is it that if an AI assisted manufacturing decision contributes to, let's say, a defective batch, does the industry actually know yet who's accountable? The company, the AI vendor, or someone else entirely? Because the
It's very
auditability
clearly,
factor needs to be a lot more.
Sudhi, in the regulated guidelines, it's very clearly laid out by the regulators that what quality checks need to happen
Okay.
at what point in time. Point number one. Point number two, and this is with technology or if you're manual, the point you
Fair.
made earlier, right? And with the advent of AI and organizations adopting more AI, our regulators are also evolving their policies and procedures.
Fair.
And they have been very outright. And I, would like to say that, that is the right way to think that, hey, human responsibility is only going up. You can use assistance. You can get a co-pilot or a companion to assist, but it's eventually the human or the organization who is still accountable in the equation. So, like I said, I think the way we have to look at these things, I'll give you another analogy. 50, 60 years ago, computers came,
Sure.
right? Many of us were maybe in schools and saw our first laptop or a desktop, in a fifth grade or a 10th grade, depending on, how far our ages apart, right?
Right.
That was also intelligence. It moved certain piece of human work onto a computer
Sure.
at a certain improved speed. Let's fast forward. 2G came, 3G came, now we have 5G, we're talking about 6G,
Yep.
right? That is also speed of information streaming and availability and access. Now look at AI. All these are different forms of what I call intelligence tools or instruments, whichever you want to call it, which have moved generationally forward and empowered the humans who have been the primary creators of this, right? In a very different way. So that's the reason I'm a firm believer that as long as that this entire relationship between human and machine coexist in the definition of intelligence, machines will keep improving and providing humans more better inputs or insights so that their decision making process can be enhanced, leading to a better experience, creating that side of your gray cells and extra capacity that you can take on something more. So it's very fascinating that how this entire era is evolving. It sometimes gets nostalgic. When I passed out way back in 92, my AI was my elective project.
Wow, wonderful.
I, I kick myself that I wish I had kept that project book until now, but I don't have it.
Right.
And we made a speaking chip. You can type anything on the keyboard, it will speak
Brilliant.
out. And
Brilliant.
today we talk about speech to text. It all started way back,
Yep.
Alexa, Series, and
Sure.
equivalents, right? So technology is always there to help. And I'm a big believer the entire word technology is only spoken twice in its lifetime. One, when you buy it. Two, when it is broken.
Right.
In between is experience.
Wonderfully put, sir. Wonderfully put.
That is only getting to the next level,
Hmm.
right? After AI, there's going to be quantum, right? We
Right.
all know QAI is already in the
Yeah.
works,
Yeah.
and someday it'll get there. So sometimes I call it's a curiosity of the human mind that is getting so out there. And good news is that it's now in the reach of the masses versus, technically just brilliant people, who can do wonders for sure. But now it's available on your, fingertips, and you can work through keystrokes. So that's the way I look at AI. Yes, every new technology comes with its own set of challenges. One has
True.
to take care of it, one has to work through it. And that's the reason those experiments, that's the reason why those learnings, and it's an iterative process.
Fair point.
And the industry you work in, you have to absolutely be sure that you honor 100% without any compromise the commitments of being what you are. Because at the end of the day, any brand is a promise,
Hmm.
right?
That's true.
So you have to make sure that you do that. And in pharma, we have that extra bit of responsibility when we
Yeah.
look at our purpose, which we keep talking about transforming human lives, right?
Hmm.
And healing as an aspect of it. So that's what our mantra is, and we stay completely connected to that.
Wonderfully put, by the way. I love that bit about when you buy it, it's broken, the rest is experience. So in the emotion of being philosophical, I just want to say this as far as AI is concerned. This is my philosophy. In the breakneck speed of technology, let us not forget our intelligence. That's my thought.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. You know,
Yeah.
and the other thing which is very important in AI, I always say there are four A's in AI. I spoke
Hmm.
about three already,
Right.
which is assistive, augmentative, and agentic. But there's a fourth one, artisanal, which is humans
Nice.
training people. I think we usually, uh, you know, glad in today's world there are tools available where you can go out on the web, or internet and try it on your own. There's enough information out there,
Hmm.
but bringing people along. And one thing I'm a big believer of, if we solve first what is in for me,
Yep.
which means I get better, I get effective, I will
Right.
make my team effective.
Hmm.
And if my team is effective, likelihood of my department and eventually company,
Hmm.
that's a cascading water, fall, right?
Yep.
Will be much more better. So I think we have to bring the human at the center of this, and make them more effective. Yes, change management is an exercise,
True.
always, for humans, and that's what we need to build processes and relook at the operating models and let people play with it. Sometimes build those sandboxes, let them try it. It's like controlled way of looking at it. You learn from it, and then you start adopting. That's human. That's how we started way back in kindergarten, right?
Fair
So that's the
point.
way you keep
Yeah,
enabling them.
I agree. Fair point. So, a little more about the
Yeah.
policy I wanted you to probably shed light on. Now, and this is, of course, for the benefit of all the people who are watching. The EU AI Act's high risk obligations are phasing in this very month. Now, while the FDA has signaled a more permissive direction, cutting dozens of existing guidances. So, for a global pharma company like yourself, operating in both markets, does that kind of, divide or divergence create a genuine compliance headache, or is it manageable?
No, it's so. Let me put it this way.
Hmm.
Countries, regions, and this is my view of how we should adopt a policy.
Hmm.
Since a company like Lupin, which works globally, in 100 plus countries, regions have their own set of rules or, law of the land in which the business is to be done.
Hmm.
I think we need to, the approach should be that we should be culminating that and bringing up an umbrella policy of how we are going to interpret and adopt
Hmm.
through our
Hmm.
own processes and operating procedures.
Hmm.
So that's the way we have looked at whether it's from a data privacy standpoint, whether it's from a regulatory policy standpoint, right? Our quality leadership, manufacturing, R&D, everybody, we get together and look at it because we serve many markets.
Hmm.
Mind you, there are certain unique things which in a market are needed.
Okay.
For that, yes, there is an extra bit of compliance needed. but that's a choice of operating in that market. So
Fair
we have
point.
to honor it, and we do,
Okay.
right? So that's the approach which we have taken always. That and that's the best way for an organization to adopt, rather than what I call, in a different way of saying, if there are 10 rule books out there, rather than looking at 10 different rule books, you can come with the what I call common piece of the rule book, raise the bar one notch up so that it becomes more tightly governed and hardened. And if there are distinct pieces of that rule books, right, you adopt them for those specific markets.
Fair
And
point.
there are technology solutions with the right level of governance, and in a regulated industry, like I said earlier, especially in pharma, you have all these kind of checks already called out
Sure.
by our regulators, and they expect organizations like us and others to abide by it. And we are 1000% committed to doing it.
So I like to kind of maybe go a little further now from, let's say, the India point of view, Rakesh sir. Here is what I want to understand. Multiple major Indian pharma companies have received US FDA observations over the past 2 years, a shared reality across the sector, not isolated to any one firm. So we'll be fair on that. Can AI genuinely help an entire industry, sir, reduce this pattern? Or is that promise still unproven anywhere at meaningful scale? And if you could be kind enough to maybe embellish that with a use case or an example, if at all.
See, like I said early on, and you alluded as well, observations are due to many reasons,
Sure.
right? Can technology solve everything? Answer is no.
Agreed.
I don't think from the other side, anybody's expecting technology to solve everything as well. So it's a two-way, if I may call it. If we can automate certain things and improve and sustain compliance, which means you reduce the variation of that process and you bring it in a what I call a tolerance band, I think it's always welcome, independent of which industry you are in. Because at the end of the day, what is a piece of technology? It is helping you to have a control plan of your business process. That business process, the simplistic example is you ordering a food and a Swiggy guy delivering it, as simple as that, or we producing, drugs and dispatching out, right? And everything has its own set of steps. Yes, one is more complicated, one is needing more diligence relative to the others, and so on and so forth. And these are the business models which exist. So my view is wherever technology can assist to help you reduce the variation and sustain consistently the outputs you want, one should leverage technology, definitely. And as and when you're doing that, make sure your governance layer, because governance you need with technology and without technology. That's the reason I use the word control plan.
Agreed.
Will always coexist in the equation. There's no technology where you do not go through maker, checker, approver, reviewer, or there is no manual process where you don't have these maker, checker, reviewers, right? So one has to have that always, oversight at the right levels, asking the right set of questions. And that's the way to be looked at it, Sudhi, from an overall standpoint. And these are always an opportunity, findings, and one has to only get better, and not get better once, but permanently better, so that you really make it stick. And technology can play definitely a good role in cementing that sustainability dimension of your performance of the process, which will eventually control the manufacturing or dispatch, of the drug. Make sense?
Makes sense. Absolutely makes sense. This is something, sir, which has made me very curious in terms of a lot of the reports which have come out. Let's say Gartner, MIT, etc., etc. Now, a lot of them, and I really wanted to actually ask you this question, which is the fact that there's this constant thing about the failure of 70 to 85% of enterprise AI initiatives, which tend to fail when they scale up. we kind of, briefly spoken about that. I do understand you've talked about it from the point of view of transparency, sandboxes, it's important to experiment, etc. But I want to ask this to you from a different angle. Does pharma specifically beat that number, given how much more scrutiny this industry applies? Or do you feel the caution actually makes the failure rate worse? Because I feel could actually go the other way.
Honestly, I don't have the numbers on that, but I'll share directly from our own experience.
Yeah.
See, when you start any transformation or any technology intervention or any sort of improvement projects, I think one has to be very clear on what is the definition of success.
Well
And
put.
definition of success has, I call it as part of the value tree, tangible and intangibles. Right? And we are in regulated industry. There is compliance dimension also. One has to be very clear what is the expected outcomes, if I may say differently, in that value tree, and one has to work towards it. And there has to be regular checkpoints in your process that you are gaining visibility as you are marching forward, that those kind of expected outcomes are nearing out there for you to feel it and see it.
Sure.
And that's how, like I said early on, when we started, we also boiled down from 100 odd ideas down to 5 when we started.
Sure.
And by the time we finished 8-10 months doing the proof points of those, we kind of concluded that 2 out of those 5 we are not seeing a large value. And value, like I said, means both on the outcomes, which the stakeholders, sponsors, or the business units expect. The second part of it was overall thinking that can we really show this to the enterprise in a global sense?
Right.
And then we consciously as a management decided to drop them and not pursue it. And these things have to going through a regular dialogue and conversation. Sometimes I tell people, the last 2 years, right from the language of LLMs, vector DBs,
right,
and TPUs, GPUs, right? I think we are reaching a point where AI is becoming more of a conversation and conviction subject to deliver those decision advantages, which a leader would look for in a corporate setup. In the industry they exist. So that would be, in my mind, what we have seen. And yes, we learn every day.
Agreed.
I'm not shying away from saying that some will work, some will not.
Which is
some
fine.
will scale in a limited fashion. As long as, like I said, with a human in the center or a team in the center, we can make them better. You should adopt it, right?
Makes sense.
Any limited benefit giving you capacity back to get much more richer.
True.
To apply that capacity in a bigger thing is a beautiful thing to a human mind. And that's the way we should look at it, Sudhi.
Makes sense, sir, because what came out for me from what you just spoke about, from your personal experience and from the company's example that you gave, there is a balanced, measured approach. I think that's why it is not going to fail when it scales up. I think a lot of probably enterprises get it wrong, just in a hurry to go ahead and scale up. They're not actually thinking it through. As you just mentioned, there is a very focused approach that was followed as far as you were concerned, which then brings me to this. As far as the IoT sensors and predictive analytics, etc., are increasingly being used across pharmaceutical manufacturing and quality control globally. So on the upside, let's go ahead and discuss that. Where is this actually working at real scale, sir, across the industry right now? It would be wonderful if you could share an example with us. And where do you still feel it's mostly, let's say, a pilot everyone's still talking about? I'm just going further on what you just spoke.
See, factories always have sensors. Not
Correct.
Every instrument or every device, but they always have sensors because that's the way you get the machine data out.
Sure.
In any factory setup, there is a process data based on what you're performing, and there's a machine which is performing that process with your machine data. So combination of process and machine data coming together gives that ability to the plant leadership or manufacturing leadership, right, to make the decisions as they may want it. So we are no different from other companies in the industry where we have IoT devices or sensors, like you said, on machines where we need, and we do all kind of yield optimization projects, utility analysis of reactors, and so on. So that happens as part of it. Now, yes, many of these are machine learning algorithms because they are consistently working 24 by 7 by
Sure.
365, right? Rather than a pure generative AI kind of use cases. But the beauty is, once you have that machine learning algorithms working at the back end, you can use generative AI technology to do summarizations, right?
Fair.
All that kind of stuff for a common individual to make those inferences and bring different probes in a factory setup, right from machine uptime to availability of my reactors and so on. So we are doing that in few of our manufacturing sites very successfully. And this all started much before AI came in, because IoT
Agreed.
sensors and all have been in the industry for a long, long time.
Sure.
And that's the reason sometimes I believe that AI in manufacturing, exists right from the chip levels, which are the PLCs, the programmable logical controllers, which are existing inside the instruments, up to robotics, to AMRs, to digital twins. So the plethora of technology spectrum options are much wider when we have to think about manufacturing.
Agreed.
And I strongly believe this applies to other industries, whether you look at FMCG,
Automotive, sir.
Right? Absolutely. Robotics and all is so big. They are also kind of AI.
True.
In that sense, right? So that's the way to look at the entire spectrum of choices which are available for the shop floor.
Makes sense. And I guess also, probably I'll add to what you just mentioned, it also makes the adaptability for a lot of these sectors and industries that you mentioned, because they've been grappling with AI in some form or the other for quite some time. So maybe with this agentic AI situation, maybe just makes it easier for them to kind of, maybe understand it better, apply it better, etc. That's my thought. That's probably the way I think about this.
One foundational element which I think I remind my team and I remind my partners with whom we work, data is foundational.
Yeah.
And it is a journey. It's not a destination.
True.
That's the reason this is a decision input or decision advantage. As the data gets more high quality, you can take advantage of it better, in addition to your gut, which weighs into your making decisions.
Very important.
Right? We are humans.
Yeah.
We will always bring our conviction, experience, knowledge into the play.
Yep.
So one has to constantly work on that, and organizations have to have a roadmap that how they're going to continually move up that ladder of making their data at the right place, doing the right thing, and eventually enabling better decision making.
I agree. 47%, sir. I have to ask you this. 47% of India, as far as India is concerned, takes care of the prescription for in terms of the United States is concerned. Prescription drugs is concerned. That's a huge share. Now, I want to understand from you. You had mentioned earlier, and I was kind of, it was a takeaway for me, that every industry, especially let's say a Lupin as a company, has a promise which it has to, in some way or the other, maintain throughout consistently. Very important. Now, given that entire onus of responsibility on the pharma industry and that number, how do you feel about this? What does India's outsized role in the supply chain mean for how carefully the whole industry needs to get AI right? Because I'm trying to quantify it.
See, supply chain is a very important backbone in the manufacturing sector. Right from raw material sourcing to having the finished good shipped out, logistics side of the house, and eventually, wherever you are landing it. So that entire piece is a very critical backbone. And given the world we all live in, which is complex, unpredictable, and getting more complex by the day, I think having a supply chain resiliency, right, in the overall true sense, is becoming more and more relevant and important. And I think it will stay like that for a while.
Fair.
And it's very important that we get to know our suppliers. It's important to know through right kind of metrics, that how we are going to serve our clients or customers in that sense. So clearly, I see that this particular piece has to be in the center and middle, because it all starts with demand planning on one side,
Sure.
which gives you the overall feel of what we want to put it out there, and then having the entire resource planning mapping to it, including your factories, right? So that we can dispatch right stuff at the right place, and our failure rates are much lower in delivering the goods. When I talk about that aspect, so this is going to be key, and it continues to be key. I know many organizations, including us, we have been talking about establishing right level of control towers, so that we have end-to-end visibility, right?
Sure.
It's like your own radar system, for lack of better word,
Right.
where you get a full kind of visibility, especially on critical aspects, which makes the entire raw material sourcing up to logistics delivery, transparent and visible. So that's the way we have been thinking about it. Focusing on what I call early alerts
Fair.
and supply chain is a very key aspect,
True.
independent of which kind of business you are in. Secondly, is once you get those early alerts, clearly orchestrating how you're going to maintain the fulfillment standards which you're committed to, right? I think is the another big one. But early alert is one aspect of it. And the third one is obviously your entire supplier base, staying actively and visibly engaged through the right kind of checks and balances, and having different kind of alternate vendor strategies to make sure that, at any point in time, your fulfillments are not, at risk. And that's an ongoing journey. And
Agreed.
organizations, I would say pre-COVID, were doing it in some fashion. COVID brought a next level of challenges, created a new normal, largely for the organizations. And now I call it the world we are entering is a never normal world, because we have to be having this resiliency right in the front of anything and everything.
Agreed.
As we go forward.
I love the term our own radar system. It just kind of gave a wonderful little picture. In conclusion, Rakesh sir, this is what I want to ask you. The role of the CIO has changed dramatically with the advent of AI. AI native seems to be probably the way forward. A lot of enterprises seem to be going ahead and adopting it in their own way. Right? And how do you see it 5 years down the line? Both the role of the CIO and secondly, the overall landscape of the pharma industry given the footprint of AI?
Very good question. I get this kind of a question many times, in all possible conversations inside and outside the organization. There was a time when information technology, and this is the beauty of being around and seeing all the transitions, Sudhi, is, there was a time when technology function operated more like a supplier or a provider of services. I think from there it moved to an enabler.
True.
I think now it's a growth engine. So the way, at least I always say this, is that today, if there are 2-3 things which CIO and their organizations need to do more of, one is the entire ambiguity navigation. We are getting complex by the day, and there are many macro indicators which are weighing in when I say that. So it's very important that we have the ability to sift through that ambiguity and navigate through it well. Second, stakeholder translation, right from investors to CXOs to the consumer of our services or beneficiaries of the services, I would like to say it, right? That is the second one. Third one, which is so important, this is the fourth A in the AI, the artisanal intelligence.
Right.
our capability. We are so blessed that we are seeing a technology which we all have heard it over our careers, cooking up, building up, baking up, and now is in front of us, right? So how do we make every possible employee in the company powered by it? Because believe it or not, everybody uses every piece of technology right from the time they wake up to the time they sleep. So we are blessed that technology is out there. It's just how do we make that part of the way of working? And
Right.
a constant dialogue and evolving mindset is the key in seeking any kind of alignment before we get into the execution dimensions. By nature, tech guys first jump to the solution
Yes.
because we know it. But I think what we are trying to solve here and comprehend here is much more larger in the interest of a business we exist
Fair.
or the context we exist. I think that to me is the larger challenge today than just being pure techies, for lack of better word. I'm not saying it's bad,
Sure,
but I think we
sure.
have to
I understand what you're saying.
transcend. We have to transcend that. I call it the S curve. From the cusp. It's like going from one, jump to the other. I think we're right in the middle of the cusp out there. So those are the few things which come to my mind. And that's not easy. Let me tell you, because
Yep.
having a seat on the table is good. But today, the world, the way everybody is consuming technology, I think we have to step up and have those right conversations and the ability to have that courage, right? Because conviction and all that is good, but you need to have that courage to have those conversations now.
Wonderfully put, sir. Rakesh sir, it's been a true pleasure having this conversation with you, discussion with you. You are an ocean of knowledge. You've been very honest. You've been very, progressive in the way that you put things across. And the fact that I believe, yes, conversations like these are extremely important for us to kind of reach a point of addressing a lot of the aspects and understanding that the holistic view usually is something which matters a lot more than just having tunnel vision. That's my thought.
You summarize the entire conversation. You're good at it, man. Sudhi, love it.
I
Thank you
try,
for
sir.
that.
The
Look forward to
medication
seeing
is
you.
helping.
Look forward to seeing you in person sometime. So
Wonderful.
appreciate it. I think I equally enjoyed it. I'm glad that that we had this conversation, and thank you so much for your
So very
time this
kind of
morning.
you, sir. It's been a true pleasure. Thank you so much.
Likewise. Take care.
Thank you. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Please do let us know what are your thoughts in the comments below. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by the AIM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AIM.